All right, well, welcome everyone. My name is Sarah Wheaton, so I'm an account manager with Kane Mathrick Tech, and I'm thrilled to welcome you all to today's webinar. We've got special guest Aidan Clifford from Pax8 joining us today, and he's going to take us through some of the real-life benefits of using Copilot, particularly with a focus on Outlook today. So this session is all about you and we want you to get the most out of it that you possibly can. We encourage you to pop any questions that you have into the Q&A or the chat, and we'd love to address those as we go through the session throughout. Now, without further ado, I'm actually going to pass the mic, if you like, to our guest speaker today. We've got Aidan Clifford. So he's the Microsoft Business Manager Team Lead at Pax8. He's a great partner of ours for all things Microsoft. I'm going to, without further ado, pass it over to you, Aidan. You can take control and give a better and a more thorough introduction of yourself, and then take it away.
Awesome. No, thanks very much, Sarah. Just taking control there, and I'll just move on to the next slide. So thanks for the warm introduction. I think you covered off most of the bases there. But for those of you who don't know me, my name's Aidan. I get to partner with KMT from Pax8. We're a global Microsoft distributor, partner of the year with Microsoft last year, which was an awesome achievement. But what the really cool thing is, I get to work with great partners like KMT on adopting Microsoft technologies, helping out clients like yourselves in order to really navigate any of the ambiguity or the opportunities or overcome any of the challenges that it comes to taking when you're adopting new technology. So it's really exciting. I've had a chance to work with Copilot for about the last 18 months. It's been an ever-changing ecosystem in that time. There's been a dramatic amount of change in the feature set, in the capabilities, and even when I was preparing for the session today, some of the features had changed because I was on annual leave last week, and there were some new enhancements there. So it's something that you definitely want to make sure that you're aligning to the KMT team to get the most up-to-date knowledge. But what I'll do is I'll move forward to the agenda that we'll cover today, covering off all things Copilot in Outlook. So first of all, I'll just cover off what is the Copilot for Microsoft 365 opportunity, just kind of level set a bit of an understanding around where generative AI from the lens of Copilot has come over the past year or so, and then just sort of trying to establish what are the advantages of looking at this through the Microsoft lens. From there, I'll start to have a look at specifically in the use case within Outlook, just to kind of get a bit more of a glimpse into that specific app and some of the opportunities that are within that experience. Because the Copilot offering is so expansive, it does pay off to try and have a bit more of a laser focus on some of the individual opportunities that are available. But then from the sessions that we've been running with KMT and in the channel over the past while, we see the most value in actually doing some demos, getting really hands-on with the product, and just making sure that we can hopefully leave the session today with 2 or 3 really tangible examples of how you can start to save time and how to make sure that you can get those productivity benefits, which we hear about so much with AI. So without further ado there, I'll just start to move on. As Sarah said, please feel free to put any questions in the chat. We can take pauses just to kind of clarify and get you the information that we need to get the most out of the session. But what I really wanted to kick off with, and if you've seen one of my sessions before, you may have seen this slide already because it has been around for a little while. But what I really want to do is just kind of help just show and really visualize how expansive and how much generative AI and that AI adoption wave has hit the market over the past 12 months. So if we transport back to when there were different technology inflection points over the past 20 or so years, we kind of have this interesting graph to show how quickly users adopted it to that magic number of 100 million users. So really seeing how it has had that dramatic effect on the market. If we look at sort of hardware innovations like mobile phones, it took 16 years to get to 100 million users. Things like the internet, which obviously was pretty slow back in the day, but it's lightning quick these days. NBN sometimes, but you know what I mean? Took about 7 years to get there. And even free services, which were software-based like Facebook and social media, took 4.5 years to get to 100 million users. If we compare that to ChatGPT, which is probably the most common household name that you're familiar with when it comes to AI, it only took 3 months to hit 100 million users, which is absolutely staggering. Not just in the amount of users that adopted it and gave it a go, but really it is an indication in how easy it is for people to interact with AI, how they're able to use their natural language. There isn't as big an adoption curve to getting started, and the value that people can start to see in the efficiencies and productivity they can get back into their day. I was joking with the team before. I was trying to do some research ahead of this presentation as well to see if there were any other technical innovations that got to 100 million users faster than ChatGPT. And the only one I could find was Pokemon Go, which I thought was pretty funny. So if we can get a business opportunity that goes as viral as much as Pokemon does, then it's probably something worth diving into a little bit more.
interesting. Fun fact to get us started. Thank you.
I always like that one. But what I wanted to sort of establish is we are seeing from that massive amount of users, 100 million users, really in 3 months, this is about a year ago now, how many people are starting to adopt AI. So we're starting to see through some research from Microsoft in their most recent Trend Work Index report. They actually found that over 75% of people are already using AI at work, and nearly half of that, 46% of them, started using it less than 6 months ago. So we can start to see that adoption curve really hasn't started to slow down. In fact, it's probably taken off even more so as there's been more competition in the market. ChatGPT, Google's entered the fray, Meta's entered the fray, Twitter's entered the fray as well, and obviously Microsoft with its big bet on Copilot too. What this does present, though, is we can see that the vast majority of those users are starting to bring their own AI tools into work. They aren't necessarily getting that leadership from their organizations on how to utilize AI, which ones are safe, which ones are the ones that we want to support in accordance with our compliance requirements. And it's even higher at a small business level where some of these adoption and change management programs may not be as formalized as they are in the corporate and enterprise sector. So while this is really good to understand what your employees are using, it really does start to bring in a lens of considering what some of the ramifications might be if your employees are utilizing AI and they're not utilizing necessarily in a way that's approved by your business. So they might be getting productivity, some of them may be using it effectively, but understanding the lens of risk that can also lean into if you're not working with partners like KMT on that adoption and change and the security that's required to make sure that is a robust deployment. But if we look at it from a workload perspective as well, why are people starting to use AI this much and why has the adoption been so quick? It's because we're starting to see what Microsoft has termed a digital debt. A vast majority of knowledge workers are really struggling to keep up with the pace and volume of their work. I know in the sort of the post-COVID period or even during COVID period itself, the amount of team meetings that we had in our calendars has really started to ramp up. Most people's calendars are pretty jam-packed full from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Teams meetings. But once we got out of that COVID lockdown period, I didn't really see that much behavioural change in the amount of Teams meetings that we had. It still managed to stay at that same level, even though we weren't necessarily working virtually all the time. So people are in meetings a lot of the time. They're getting bombarded with emails and messages and a whole bunch of different platforms that are communicating with them. So it's getting to a stage where people are struggling to keep up their work, but they're also skimming through the emails that they are receiving. If you're receiving a well-written 3-paragraph email, on average, they're only spending 15 seconds actually reading it. So people are looking for keywords. They're looking for ways to speed up their day, which if you're not utilizing a tool to help capture that information, you may actually be losing some of the content and some of the meaning behind it. So there's got to be hopefully a better way or at least some tooling that can help us really extract the meaning from those emails and those communications en masse, which we'll dive into a little bit later. So as we've established, the opportunity for AI is growing with a large amount of Cool. Charlie, are you able to hear me? Is that okay? Sarah, you can hear me okay?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can hear you. I know that Monique Perry, who's on the line, is having trouble with her audio, and Charlie, who is on the line on behalf of KMT, is going to reach out and sort of see if she can help.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, well, let me know if there's any issues from my side as well. Cool. So from the perspective of the opportunity of AI growing, we can see obviously there's a huge amount of adoption. There's a large amount of users, particularly in that first launch from ChatGPT, but that's only grown, so it must be in the billions by now. To the extent that most businesses are saying that the vast majority of businesses, see AI as their top priority, probably level setting with cybersecurity as that top priority, which we always see as a 1-2 in the technology space. But on the flip side of this, only a very small percentage of those businesses say that they have some kind of plan for that AI adoption, which is why we're starting to see so many workers bringing their own AI solution to work, increasing that risk profile that business adopts, creating unknown compliance issues as well, but also bringing into the fray things like inaccurate information or non-compliant outputs that could be reaching out to clients and then creating potential business impacts, which unfortunately we're starting to see a few business and use cases of across different industries at the moment. But what we've established there's a huge use case for AI. So why are we talking necessarily about Microsoft Copilot today? Well, what differentiates Microsoft's Copilot and AI initiatives from some of the other competitors in the market like ChatGPT or Google Gemini is it does still utilize the same large language models that we've seen the successful deployment of AI in the market today. So we've got the large language models, we've got the ability to use our natural language with AI modeling to then receive natural language responses back to create that dialogue and to create those productivity gains. But what it does also is it ties natively to the Microsoft data that's part of your business today. You don't require large migrations in order to access this technology. You don't have to bring in information externally in order to interact with the model. It's already sitting there within your business environment if you're a Microsoft 365 organization, which in the vast majority of SMBs in Australia have adopted. The extension of this, it also brings that experience, the large language model, the data into the Microsoft 365 apps, which you're already using today. So if you think about probably as long as I've been a student or in the workforce, which is quite a long time now, I've been using Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. So these are the apps that we've got knowledge work basing in for like the past, as probably as long as you've been working on a computer, and it's bringing that AI innovation into the fold there. One of the interesting things I heard from Microsoft as well is that on average, people are only accessing probably 5 to 10% of the feature set within these Microsoft 365 apps. So one of the really big opportunities we have in front of us is to utilize AI to tap into those really rich feature sets that we have available within some of these apps. If we think about what we can accomplish within Word and Excel in particular and PowerPoint, we're really only scratching the surface. So if we have an AI assistant to help us access more of the value there, it's only going to pay off more as far as the ROI you get on your investment in your licensing and your technology as well. But if we zone in a little bit and just focus really specifically on Copilot in Outlook, let's have a look at some of the features that are the most popular use cases for Copilot within that email experience. So firstly, as I established, there's a real bombardment or an overflow of the amount of emails and contacts that people are receiving. So Copilot can now work to help summarize those email threads for you, suggest any action items, help you with replies, helping you with follow-ups to make sure that you can really carve through that those amount of emails faster, but also extract the information that you need to receive from those faster than before as well. It's actually also, when it comes to composing emails, it's really starting to be more advanced. I'll go through some of the features when I do the demo in a few minutes, just going through the different ways that you can change the tone of voice as part of these emails, making sure that they're professional, make sure they're casual if it's just to a colleague, or making sure that it's longer, shorter, depending on what you want to craft there and speeding up that process. But they're also putting that AI modeling to read through what is your actual style of writing. If you want to select, okay, I want this email to sound how I usually speak to my manager or how I usually speak to my clients, you can use that as an overlay to hopefully make sure that AI generated content is as close to what you would organically write as possible to help speed up the process there. In addition to this, we might, when we think of AI and Outlook, might just think of the composition of emails, might just think of the replying to emails. So, but it's actually expanding really far beyond that into the capabilities that you can work through Outlook. You can now start to organize meetings, ask Copilot in Outlook to find, say, a time that Charlie and Sarah are free next Thursday. So Copilot can do the heavy lifting to align those calendars and really identify that white space, which if you're organizing a large team meeting, I know that it is a pretty painstaking task to make sure you can find a slot where everyone is free within business hours, even if you're going across multiple time zones. So really start to get some use cases that extend out beyond that traditional just summary and text-based usage within Outlook. But in addition
Aidan,
to that,
is that a new advancement for Copilot? That relatively new, that functionality about organizing the teams, or is that something that it's been there since the beginning that I just haven't harnessed yet?
They previously deployed it through the Copilot chat function, but now they've started to deploy it within the apps as well. So it was kind of like a little bit hidden whilst they finalized the development of it, but then they really finished it off for Ignite last year, and they put it into general availability towards the end of the last calendar year. So it is pretty new, but now they're really starting to promote it as it's gone through a lot more of the advanced testing.
Fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's been really handy, that one, and I think this is one of the things of the adoption and change of utilizing AI is A, knowing what are the functions of there, because sometimes they're hiding in plain sight, but then B, also building that muscle to change your behavior to take advantage consistently of those incremental wins in your day to get a lot more of those minutes, hours, and days back for you. So that's when it goes through to some of the other tasks that it can help speed up. You can use Copilot now to turn on your automatic replies. So you can say, I need to go on Christmas leave. Please book in my automatic calendar with this message from the 24th through to the 6th of Jan, whatever it is. And you can also do things to say, book in meetings, create inbox rules. So say, for example, if I wanted to put emails from Sarah into a special folder, I can just type that in natural language, or if I wanted to tag it with a certain flag, just to make sure I can filter. So there's quite a lot of opportunity here, which usually you'd need to be a sort of an intermediate or advanced user going through the settings of Outlook to find out how to do. It really raises the bar of how people are able to get the advantages out of the platform.
Yeah, for sure. It sounds like it's almost giving you a bit of a personal assistant to join you. I mean, actually, that's pretty much how Copilot has been marketed from the get-go. So you can really see the benefits coming through there now.
Yeah, well, and that's it. So, and that's where the name comes in as far as Copilot. A lot of the sort of the risks that we see with AI is using it on autopilot. So just getting the output, getting the inputs, and just sending them out without reviewing them. But the intention now is to utilize Copilot to really speed up that generation process, but making sure you're casting your eye over it and making sure that it's up to the standards that you want it to see. But again, using it as the as your virtual assistant, as you said.
Right.
Awesome. So moving on from there, we can start to see some of the use cases where Copilot really starts to come in handy within Outlook. But really to level set across all of the Copilot experience, it does come down to the prompts that you enter into the engine as well. Prompting is a bit of an art and a bit of a science. You need to start to find your way how to make sure that you can get the most amount of meaning succinctly into the AI engine in order to get the most accurate response back. Obviously, Copilot does have the ability to go back and forth. If it's not the right response that you get the first time, you can then respond back saying, oh, please shorten this, please extend this, please take into account a further source in order to build out that content. But there are some pretty standard rules that you can utilize in order to get a more accurate outcome from the get-go. So first thing, Microsoft has created these ingredients, which really go down to what is the goal that you want Copilot to build out. So this one, we want to really create 3 to 5 bullet points. That's the main output that we want to receive from Copilot. But what's the context? Where do we want Copilot to start extracting the information from? So from this one, we want to prepare for a meeting with client X, and we want to discuss a certain brand campaign. And so we want to make sure that it's scouring through the data in our business, looking for client X and looking for phase 3 in particular in order to build up the content we have there from the bullet points we want it to create. But since it's going across all of the information across our organization, we want to limit those parameters again. We want it to focus on emails and Teams chat since June. So we don't want it to take into account all of the information we've got in our SharePoint, for example, or all of the information on our OneDrive. We really just want our email and Teams chats for a certain period of time to be the relevant there for you. And then where we're going through, which will be a bit more relevant for the Outlook component of the demo, is using simple language so we can get people up to speed quickly. So rather than using professional language or using a legal tone or using some other parameters that we want Copilot to output, just really short, sharp, and direct so that people can pick up the information that we're trying to put down there as easily as possible. These do take a little bit of practice, but when you're putting your prompts in, if you do think about those 4 major components, I can pretty much guarantee you're going to get a closer outcome to what you want the first time than if we start to write a bit more of a looser-based sentence and having the AI need to do some heavy lifting in order to extract the meaning that you want there.
Yeah. Hey, Aidan, just before you move on, if you don't mind, I've got a question from Elizabeth,
Yep.
and it probably links back to what we were talking about earlier around, when we're in Outlook and we're asking it to do things, being that executive assistant kind of role. She's gathering that it can be done on the online version of Outlook using Copilot in that nature and also through the desktop app. Is there any difference between engaging with Copilot on either or?
Pretty much it's the same. So it is a really good question because there is a bit of a nuance to it. So the demo that I'll do in a few moments will be in the browser-based version of Outlook. The reason I do that is because thinking about the development cycle from Microsoft, they develop faster into the browser-based version because it doesn't then need to be prescribed into a desktop app because it's an additional development step. But if you give it 2 or 3 weeks, like the online version will always be the most modern version with the desktop version really quickly to follow. But if you find there is a feature in the desktop app that isn't there that you're looking for, chances are it's going to be in the online version if it's been announced and been released. So on the whole, 99% of the times, it's exactly the same. But since it is such a changing ecosystem, the online version is the most up-to-date one.
Right. Hopefully that helps, Elizabeth. And for anyone else that's got any questions, just feel free to pop them in the chat. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. No, we don't see it as much within the Outlook experience, just anecdotally. It's more within the higher technical ones, like within Excel or within PowerPoint. That's where we start to see a bit more of a variance between the online and the desktop version. But the Outlook one seems to be pretty up to date. However, it does need to be new Outlook versus classic Outlook.
Yeah, it does for all Copilot, right? Is that correct? All Copilot is available in the in the new version of Outlook, whereas the old version of Outlook,
yeah, it's a bit
not.
limited.
Yeah, limited. Great.
Cool. So from that result, so we've sort of seen the foundation that Microsoft has built out. We've started to see some of the feature sets that it's starting to release and what we can access today. But the results are starting to come in. So some of the research that Microsoft has been conducting is just around what are some of the gains that users are able to gain through their usage of Copilot. And from a qualitative perspective, things are looking pretty good. The vast majority of Copilot users, I believe this was in the first 90 days of their use, said that they were feeling more productive. They were going through their work. They felt like they were carving through more of their office hours faster than before. So on the whole, qualitatively feeling really positive about their Copilot experience. However, I'm a bit more of a data-led guy. I do prefer to see some harder numbers on the page. So we did get to see some results from Microsoft where this is particularly within a Teams setting. They found that users who are utilizing Copilot in Teams to summarize a 35-minute meeting versus those who weren't utilizing Copilot in Teams, they were able to summarize that meeting 4 times faster than those who weren't using Copilot. What was really interesting about this as well is not only did they summarize it faster, but they found that they actually summarized it to a more accurate and a higher level than those not using Copilot too. Because if you think about when you're taking part in the meeting, so kind of getting outside of Outlook for a moment, taking part in that meeting, you're listening to if you've got Copilot, you're utilizing all of the content that's taking place. You're listening to the conversations that are taking place. You're not spending time trying to write down questions, write down notes at the same time. You know that you've got your AI assistant up the back who is taking it diligently for you, and you can reflect upon that information after the meeting rather than needing to split out your resources. So it's been something that's been a huge game changer for me. However, if I start to expand that outside of Teams as well, looking at things like Outlook, looking at tasks like searching for documents, searching for emails, writing, replying to them, and then summarizing them, they found that Copilot users were also working faster and to a higher or equal degree, 29% faster than those not utilizing Copilot as well. Which if you extrapolate that out of the amount of hours in a month for workers, if you can insert an extra 29% back into your day, back into your months, then that's a huge ROI on the license cost for Copilot. And it'll just take a bit of that adoption and change management to make sure you can utilize those benefits as well. And our favorite department, sales, we saw sales was able to get 90 minutes back into their week utilizing Copilot as well. The reason I mentioned the sales example is because not only is that 90 minutes back into the workers' weeks, but it's also 90 minutes more that those salespeople could be closing deals. So if you think about the follow-on effect of the ROI of these efficiency gains, it can actually pay off in multiples when it comes to that revenue generating roles as well, which is, I think, is pretty cool. So there's a great opportunity in front of us, kind of summarizing what we've seen before. The vast majority of SMBs at mid-market firms are looking to utilize generative AI in one way or form in the next 6 months. This was actually a few months ago, so probably the time is right now when it comes to these statistics. But again, there are some considerations. Only a small amount of organizations have AI management policies currently in place, and only a small amount of them are actually working to mitigate any of the risks, such as inaccurate information. Some of the use cases that we are starting to see out, I usually used American ones a couple of months ago, but now we're starting to see some locally based ones here in Melbourne. There's actually a family lawyer locally who who was submitting their brief to the judge for a family law case. The judge went through it, all read very well. It all looked like it was supporting a really positive case for that barrister. However, when they reviewed the contents of it, they found that all of the reference cases were actually completely created. They were imaginary and didn't actually exist, because what had happened is they had used ChatGPT in order to create that use case and create that brief back to the judge. So I think that lawyers are going on a bit of a holiday from their profession, and I think has to pay about a $50,000 fine as well. So what we say is there is a huge opportunity in front of us, but there are checks and balances that we need to put in place as far as training our workers, making sure they're harnessing that opportunity, but harnessing it in a compliant and safe way as well, because we want to make sure that we can create a lot of content really quickly, but we want to make sure it's the right content that's going to benefit your business.
For sure. And I'm finding the same questions are coming through from all of my clients, and we've got a wide range of industry types and client types in our portfolios. They're always really mindful or questioning around the differences between open AI and using Copilot for business in the work environment. I don't know if you have any couple of quick liners. That was a great example of it, but just to differentiate the two so that people can feel certain about the difference between ChatGPT and the free Copilot versus the business Copilot.
Yeah, sure. So, from a baseline perspective, there's the free version of ChatGPT, but there's also a free version of Copilot that comes with all M365 licenses, and that's the ability to use the large language models of Copilot with information on the web. You can also start to attach things like PDF files to work with it and insert files. It doesn't live natively within your data, but what it does have that ChatGPT doesn't have, it has commercial data protection. Microsoft's make guarantees that they don't use the prompts that you enter in there or the data that you insert into your prompts to train the model, which isn't a guarantee that the free version of ChatGPT provides, because they rely on that data to train their models and to really expand their offering. So what they say is ChatGPT says that they don't share that information, but it does mean that if they are subject to a leak or they're subject to any sort of breach, then potentially your information that you put into that model is available on the open market. ChatGPT didn't explain how this happened, but that happened to a couple of Samsung workers pretty early on when ChatGPT came onto the scene. They were putting their code into ChatGPT to clean it up, to optimize it. It did a pretty good job of doing that. However, they found out that their competitors then had that IP in their hands in the next few weeks through a leak at the OpenAI side of things. So it just goes to show that you want to make sure your data is safe, first of all, so you can utilize the benefits of Copilot without creating any business risks or creating any potential leaks from your tenancy. You want to make sure that is secure.
Great, thank you.
No worries. Well, I think that is where we're up to as far as the slides. So I'll stop sharing my screen for a moment and then start sharing my browser, just so we can start working through a few of the demos to see Copilot live in Outlook. Just be one moment and I'll start sharing my screen. So Sarah, if you could let me know if that's starting to show up for you.
That is, yeah, I can see that now. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. So I tried to model this this demo to show as much as I can about Copilot in Outlook, obviously, but it may not look like the way that you would usually use your emails, because one of the problems is it's so heavily embedded within your personally identifiable information and your business data that you want to make sure that you're not demoing all of the company secrets when you're coming down to these ones. So what I've done here is I had a catch up with my colleague Jared yesterday afternoon, and we actually used Copilot to draft a whole bunch of emails back and forth to each other about a theoretical project ABC with client X. So we've got I've got an email thread where I was collaborating with Jared, and what we'll do is we'll have a look at that one in a moment. But I just wanted to walk through how you can start to access Copilot within Outlook, where you can start to get started, and some of the features that you can utilize here. So one of the benefits you can see is actually there's quite a few ways that you can access. This is within the Edge browser that you can start to access Outlook or start to access Copilot within this experience. First of all, you can see there's a Copilot logo on the left-hand side. There's one in the actual Outlook environment in here, and there's also one in the top right-hand corner. So it's pretty hard to escape Copilot these days within the Microsoft experience, which comes in really handy because it means you can track it down quite simply. One of the features that I do want to show you, though, is if you do have a paid Microsoft 365 Copilot license, it means that you can start to utilize Copilot Chat to start searching through the information that it's got access to. So this goes across all of your emails, your Teams messages, all of your SharePoint files, which goes back to the prompts that we were talking about earlier about limiting the parameters, really asking those refined prompts. But what I want to do today is show you how I can start to summarize and track down emails from a certain sender to kind of give me some information about all of my interactions I've had with them, or to try and find the right email. As people receive hundreds of emails a day, sometimes the search functionality natively within Outlook isn't the best, but the one within Copilot I find to be a really great experience, which saves me a lot of time, both in Outlook and just in general. So what I'll first do is I'll go to the top right-hand corner, I'll click on Copilot and click this drop-down menu, because it starts to show me some of the options that I have natively within Outlook, not just within Copilot itself. So I can start replying and summarizing emails, but what I want to do is go to Copilot Chat first of all to start utilizing this experience. Copilot Chat is a bit more of a generic term for how Copilot interacts with Microsoft 365. So you can go across a lot of different data sets and a lot of different tasks to do this. I'll expand that window out a bit. As Copilot has become more mature over the past year, Microsoft is really starting to make some suggestions on the top use cases that they're seeing to really help people get started, start to get some success stories, start to get some confidence with their usage of Copilot. So you can start to see some ways you can start to get started here. So finding relevant documents, scheduling in meetings like we were discussing earlier, or even just utilizing it as a search engine on the web to understand more about different topics instead of using Google or using Bing. If you're so inclined, you can start using Copilot to be able to search and find more about those topics. You can also go down to the bottom here to click on this little star, which is pretty much becoming a common feature for most AI products now for how you can get the access to the AI features. You can click on here to see view prompts as well, to start seeing some recommendations on Microsoft for different topics. So if we're thinking about scheduling again, click on here, find a time to meet with a certain person, schedule a meeting with a different person, just to phrase it slightly differently. Do I want to catch up on emails? What's the updates on the latest project? Summarize emails and Teams messages where I was mentioned in the past week, or asking Copilot to even do some of the prioritization. What should be on my radar? I haven't, that one is a little bit more qualitative. You may miss out on things, but Copilot does apply its smarts to be able to prioritize what it thinks you'll be most actionable on, based on your interactions with different people, based on managers who have been sending you emails as well. So sometimes using that as a different lens can provide you a bit of a different viewpoint and different way to access it. Most common ones I would use is summarize my emails from this week from a certain person, but also as I was on leave last week, this is a really good one. Summarize my emails and Teams messages when I was on leave. That's a really good use case. Anyway, what I will do is I have a email from T-365, which is actually a really good Microsoft 365 blog that I subscribe to and get updates from every week. So what I want to do just to show off these features is I'll put in a prompt here, pretty simple one, but just to hopefully visualize some of the use cases here. List and summarize all emails I've received from T-365 in the past 2 months. What I'll do is I'll click send to get started on here. And I just want to see just a list and really some high level information on some of these emails to try and find the one that I really want to track down, or at least get a bit of a glimpse into some of the communications and updates that they've been sending. We'll just give Copilot a few moments and see if I can just get those ones out. Awesome. So as you can see, if you haven't used Copilot before, it's pretty good at making sure it's established the contact that I wanted to get. You can see the date ranges, I think, will be pretty accurate to the past 2 months, so just from January onwards. And we can start to see some of the updates that we're getting in here. A bit more industry specific to my stuff versus what other people might be working on. But we can start to see we've got a lot of Microsoft updates in here. Got some updates about different feature sets that are coming out, but ultimately giving us a really good snapshot into the emails we've received from T-365 within the time period that I wanted to. So it's pretty straightforward as far as the benefits you get from this one. But what it also does is it provides footnotes in all of the outcomes that we see here. If you hover over those, you can then go directly to that email and start reading it in full if that's the one that you want to get to. This comes in quite handy if you're working with your manager or if you're working with a client. Please summarize all of the emails I received from client B over the past 2 months, but you want to track down that specific email that you want to respond to or the specific piece of information. It's a really big time saver to tracking that one down. So hopefully that would come in handy for you. The next feature that I'd want to show off here is the ability to summarize emails. So as I said before, I was working with my colleague Jared yesterday afternoon, and we put together this hypothetical scenario about Project ABC. So if you look down, there's been 4 or 5 emails between us back and forth where we've gone through and asked for different milestones about Project ABC. Could you please confirm that we've spoken to all stakeholders? Jared then confirms this. He asks me some more things if he wants to ask if the team's fully engaged or if we need to have a sync meeting. But as you can see to what we were discussing earlier, it's a pretty long email chain. I've already spent quite a bit of time reading it. I may have forgotten some details along the way. So let's see how Copilot can help me summarize this to extract the information here a little bit faster. And if you've got anyone on the call today who works in support or any customer service queries, you know that those email threads can go for sort of 30 or 40 emails if something isn't really working out. So having this summary feature can really help you get up to speed and extract what is the latest on that content. If I just click on Summarize with Copilot at the top of the page, we'll then go through and it'll just give me a really quick summary of where it sees this email thread's up to date. If you think about what we were talking about before, Jared informed me that Project ABC is on track to meet all milestones. I requested an update about those milestones and the priority tasks. We then received all stakeholders have been communicated with and we're all aligned. Jared then mentioned that he will be having an executive meeting and he'll get in contact with the customer this week. Also requested customers' financials and quarterly earning reports. So if I think about the actions that I need to take out of this, Jared's requested from me to get some quarterly reports and some financials on the customer. I've established that all of the other milestones I'm looking for are on track. There's not really anything outstanding there. But ultimately, if I wanted to read those 5 lines versus 4 full emails, it's really got me up to speed a lot faster. So hopefully saved me a lot of time. Or at least giving me some areas that I really want to verify. I can probably skip the first 4 lines and then verify what is Jared's ask by going through and having a look at what the further ask is around customers' financial and quarterly earnings reportings. So hopefully that one has helped provide a bit more of an insight into that one. What we can do from here is we can start asking Copilot questions, which will open up the chat feature in a second as well. Or we can then start to go through and we can actually reply to Jared and utilize Copilot to help us out there. If we open up that window pane, we'll start to see that we have a draft with Copilot function, which we can then click on and opens up a text box. What we can do is it'll start to utilize some of the information from the emails that we've seen before, where we can start to put in, we'll need to send some reports, we need some financials now, the update's appreciated, or we can start to go through and get some prompts from Copilot on how to respond to that one quickly and sharply. If I just click on, I need financials now, we'll see what Copilot comes up with. So there we go, quick as a flash. It's gone through the email thread that we've had there. Gives a nice introductory message of, hi Jared, I hope you're doing well. Thanks for the update on Project ABC. It's great to hear we're on track with our milestones, our deadlines. For the upcoming executive engagement, could you please provide the customer financial and quarterly reports as soon as possible? If I think about it, though, from the information I know there, Jared actually asked me for the customer financial and quarterly reports. So I may need to go through and make sure I sense check this before I send it through to him. But as far as establishing the structure of the email and providing some pretty good responses back, I could keep this and then just adjust from here, or I could just discard and try and start from scratch. But ultimately, it gives me a pretty good structure on how to respond for that email for you.
I think that's where I see a lot of the benefit is sometimes actually just starting an email and finishing an email. I roughly know how to put all the bits in the middle, but it just makes the whole process end to end a lot faster, which saves time. I've got a question that's come in from Elizabeth Aiden, if you don't mind me throwing it at you just now.
Yeah, no worries.
So Elizabeth's suggesting that when she tries to access this element of Copilot, it's coming back and responding with, I don't have the ability to access or read your emails directly. And she's wondering if it's an organisational permission that needs to change or be updated. What could possibly be bringing up that error?
If everything's been implemented, so organisations do have the opportunity to toggle where Copilot can be live. So say an organisation could say you've only got access to Copilot chat on the web, or you've only got access within Outlook and PowerPoint, for example, or Outlook. So one of the decisions that the organisation may have had is to turn that off, because if everything has been switched on, I haven't seen that error pop up if it has been enabled. And it usually is. It is as easy as a toggling switch usually. But I'd probably encourage reaching out to the KMT team, and I'm happy to help.
I was going to say that. So I'm not sure if Elizabeth, if you are a current client of KMT, but definitely send that through via a ticket, and the team will be able to assist in at least understanding why that might be saying that. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, no, keep those questions coming. They're really good ones, and sometimes there are those implementation decisions that are made in an organisation, maybe intentionally, maybe not intentionally, but it can really block some of the gains that you can make there. So please do send that question and others through. I just wanted to show, so while we would go through and adjust some of the content in this email, I just wanted to show how Copilot can then change the tone and change the different parameters that we've used. So simply, if we just want to send a really quick update to Jared, I can ask them to make it a little bit shorter, in which case it will do that for us. And you see it's a pretty short, sharp message for us. We can make it a bit longer if we want to kind of hide a few of the details in there. We want Jared to do a bit more work, or we can also go through and change the tone to make it a bit more casual. If we're trying to win him over, make it a bit more formal if we're being a bit more assertive, or make it a bit more direct as well. So I'll put casual in there so you can just get a bit of a glimpse to see how it changes there. Yep, so we've changed where we started abbreviating words using things like prep, having it ahead of time. It sounds a little bit more casual, probably a bit more how I'd usually send my emails, but also just kind of gives you a bit of a glimpse into how you can change that tone depending on the scenario for you. So I'll just go ahead and keep that. I won't send it. I'll leave Jared out of it for the time being, but hopefully that's given you a bit of a glimpse in how you can start replying to emails as well. What I'll do is just to kind of show a bit more of a feature as well. I'll go through and I'll try and just create a new email from scratch just to show that experience as well. Similarly, so it is pretty similar to how you respond to emails. We can just go through and click Draft with Copilot, and then it'll come up with what do we want it to say as well. So I do have a prompt that I wanted to use for this one. And what I have is I'll spell that correctly, draft a clear and concise professional email to the marketing team for an update on our current campaigns listing, those that are active, upcoming, and closed, with commentary about their performance. So pretty standard sort of like management to team request on kind of getting an insight into what they're working on, so that you can then either respond or pass that to your stakeholders as well. If you click
so
on
you're
generate,
always thinking about your recipe, going back to that recipe about what you've put in the prompt there, so that it's going to bring forward the right response.
Yeah, so for that one, what I wanted it to be, I wanted it to be clear and concise. I wanted it to be professional, to make sure that the tone is aligned to what I want to do, making them know what the audience is, so that it's the marketing team, so that it can use its knowledge to align there as much as possible. Making sure that it gives me 3 parameters of upcoming, active, and closed. So that was within there, and giving them a space to be able to add those metrics in there as well. Since we're not asking for additional sources, we don't really need to add that parameter in there. So say like over the past 2 weeks, or from our list of current campaigns. So we do kind of can start leaving out some of those topics if they aren't relevant, to keep it as concise as possible. Right. So if we start to have a look at here, we can say for the upcoming campaigns, blah, blah, blah. It's starting to show us in here a few of the pretty much most of what we want to ask there. Current campaigns, please include key metrics, engagement rates. So quite a lot of marketing terminology that would be pretty aligned. Charlie, you can keep me honest on that one as far as the marketing terminology we use there. But from yesteryear when I was working on this stuff, it sounds like it's pretty close to what I'd be asking the team to do there, and then ultimately asking for closed campaigns. See if they're beneficial and stuff like that from there. So what I want to do is just show how you can just make a few quick adjustments to the email from Copilot as well, just to kind of show that that is a possibility. So we have this all highlighted. We can ask for Copilot to make some changes. So change the greeting to good morning, for example. Not the most meaningful example, but just want to show how you can start to interact with the text as well. Hopefully it just adjusts the top there to good morning team. So awesome, you can start to make those little adjustments there. And then I might roll the dice and ask, please change the updates into a dot point list. So we're giving a bit more opportunity for Copilot to do some work here. So I'll see if it can understand what I'm doing. I probably would spend a little bit more time crafting with the pillars that we were talking about before to give a really concise, clear request. But I'll see if it can pick up that I want it to be asking the campaigns, upcoming campaigns and closed campaigns as a dot point list instead. See what Copilot comes up with. Awesome, and it did a pretty good job of what I wanted to do. So make sure that the email isn't as text heavy, it's a little bit easier to read. It's now split up the upcoming campaigns and the requests that I've got for each of those topics into a clear dot point list as well. So hopefully a little bit easier for our team to get the meaning of what I want to show from there. So I think that's pretty close. What we wanted to do, see if we can make it a little bit shorter, make it a bit more concise for them. That didn't really work, so we'll go back from that one. But ultimately, hopefully that gives you a bit more of an indication of how you can start to utilize the drafting components with Copilot.
Yeah, great. I've got a question that's come in, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I feel like I'm hot from the desk. Question in from Carly. So Carly is asking, does Copilot work in the shared mailbox? So I've asked for a little bit more information from Carly. I'm not sure if she can pop in there. I've asked, do you mean searching into the shared mailbox or responding from it, and how to use Copilot in those sorts of circumstances? But maybe I'll just let you take it away and see if Carly's got any further detail that she'll add to the question.
Yeah, so sure. So if I'm understanding it correctly, searching, it should be able to search through all of the mailboxes that you've got permissions to access. So it's all about permissions-based access, which is part of the compliance exercise that you probably want to go through when deploying Copilot as well, making sure you've got access to all of the documents that you should have access to, and limiting the ones that you shouldn't have access to, including different mailboxes. For sending from shared mailboxes, I don't think I've got access. I'll see if I've got access to any other mailboxes here at PAX8. But if I just click down there, I believe if I had access to a shared mailbox, I'd be able to change that address from the top here to say admin@pax8.com to send from there as well. So that should be definitely a possibility. It might just take a bit of adjusting the parameters before you do that for the send. If you're in that shared mailbox, you'd be able to reply like I was doing with Jared's email before, but I would just make sure you're just checking who that email is being sent from to make sure that it's the right recipient for you.
Yeah, great. I think that will have addressed Carly's question now. So it's all about the permissions that are set up per user in the back end by your organization to see what they are able to access ultimately. So what they're able to access and what they're not able to access. So if you are currently able to access the mailbox, then you would assume that you can use Copilot within it.
Awesome. What I might do is just to go for the final demo today, I might just go back to the Copilot chat experience. So we'll start to have a look at some of the actions that you're able to create as part of the Outlook experience. So I might just have a look at the creating an out of office message to schedule that in as well. I didn't practice this one beforehand, but so let's roll the dice and see how we go. But what we've got is going back to our prompt boxing. If we go to take action, we can start to see that there are those recommendations that I was going through before. If I click on this, help set me my out of office for my trip planned, and I just use a different date range. So I can't remember when Easter is, but I'll have a guess. Trip planned for April 18 to 26th. I'll take a bit of a break that I haven't got approved yet. So hopefully that'll go through. I'll see if I can add a, please indicate I will be away from my laptop, but will respond as soon as possible. This is a pretty new feature, so we'll see what it's able to come up with, but it should be able to set our out of office within these date ranges, no problem. But we'll see what the message that it does attach to it. If we did need to establish the message with a bit more detail, we can definitely use Copilot within Word or Copilot within Outlook to help craft that as well. So there are a few different ways to make sure you get the best text outcome here. I'll press send on this, and then we'll see if we're able to get that action set up. I've used this one before. I actually used it when I went on leave last week, and it was quite handy because for the life of me, it's probably a bit more of a fault of my own, but I can never remember where to find the automatic replies in there. And it takes me about 5 minutes to find it each time. And awesome. So done. I've turned on your out of office replies from the 18th of April, 8 a.m. to 26th of April, 5 p.m. So within office hours as well. And great, it did turn out with the reply. So it was pretty prescriptive. It didn't add too much imagination to the message I gave for my automatic reply. So you might want to put that in a bit more detail or think about that, generate that text in Word beforehand or in Outlook. But it did come up with, I'll be away from my laptop and I will respond as soon as possible within that date range. If I go to manage in settings, hopefully it comes up with it there. And cool, and we can see that that's already been turned on. No other work required. It'll only send replies during that time period, so it's all ready to go. I might just turn that off to make sure I don't accidentally go on leave for a week when I'm still at work, but I'll close that one out. But hopefully it gives you a pretty good indication of some of the tasks that you can do that from that one there. It's a pretty similar process to how you would go about setting up a meeting, like finding a day that Sarah and Charlie are both free to catch up for 45 minutes, for example, or creating an email rule saying, please make sure that all of Charlie's emails are sent through to the marketing folder or something similar as well. So yeah, so hopefully that gives you a few indications of how you can utilize more of the traditional email creating and sending and replying features, but also starting to summarize your emails and then utilizing some of the actions that you can take place within Outlook as well. So hopefully there's a few gems to get you started with Copilot, but I'll stop sharing my screen now and I'll pass back to you, Sarah.
Great, thank you. Now, I'm going to just take control, take it back to the slide deck. So that was really helpful. I'm actually really impressed with how the tool develops over time. So you get presented with Copilot. I've had it myself now for about must be over a year, and there's still more and more features being brought out or expanded upon, which is really going to benefit us all. I can see you've taught me a lot today, for sure. If there's any other last questions that anybody else has, we've had some really rich questions come through, so they're always helpful for everybody, but feel free to pop them in the chat before we let Aidan go for his day. So while you're doing that, I'll let you know about how you can access this webinar going forward, because it might be that you found it really helpful and you might want to share it with one of your colleagues. You can hop on to our website. So you can hop on to kmtech.com.au, go across to resources and then scroll down to webinars, and you'll be able to see all of our previous webinars that we've got there. You'll also be able to register for any upcoming webinars as well. This one has been a really great part in a series. So we actually are bringing out some more Aidan driven Copilot webinars going forward on different topics, and you'll be able to join us in any of those. We'll be bringing them out throughout the year. For example, we have got one coming up in March, so we're going to be focusing on Copilot within Excel. We've got one coming up in April, which is about using Copilot in Teams. In June, we're going to be taking it into Word, and in July, looking at PowerPoint. So there's a lot ahead of us in terms of what we can offer. So we hope that you'll be able to join us for any and all of those future webinars. I'll just check to see if there's any last questions before I let you all go. It looks like we are all clear there. Oh, hang on, there might be one more. Just bear with me. No, we've just got Elizabeth saying that she's grateful for all of the super information, which is fantastic. I think we all got a lot out of it. I would last like to thank Aidan for joining us as our expert on the session, and we thank you all for joining us here on the KMT webinar series, and we look forward to seeing you in future episodes. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.